Principal Correspondent with Information Security Media Group in Asia. I have with me Mr. Ahmed Baig, who's the founder of the CISO Council and a leading thought leader in the UAE in security. And we're going to be discussing some of the aspects of the MESA Security Awards event conference that took place in UAE on the 24th and 25th of May. Thank you, Mr. Baig, for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So, Mr. Baig, of course, first starting with what is the CISO Council, what is it about, and can you give me a little background on how the MESA idea for the MESA conference was conceptualized?
CISO Council is a global platform which is to host the CISOs from across the world. And the idea came across when I was a CISO. I've been a CISO for almost 15 years now. And I always felt that there's a need to have a network of CISOs who could connect with each other, collaborate and contribute and finally learn from each other. So that's how exactly the CISO Council was initiated. Now, the idea again is, like I said, CISO Council is basically a platform, but we also do a lot of events around this platform. We do the conferences, we do roundtables, executive series. The idea is basically to get the CISOs and make them interact with each other, exchange information, and help them to be better and to better protect their infrastructure.
So, tell me a bit more about MESA, because I think MESA is the first award function of its kind in this region, at least for the security space. So, what were some of the ways that you were challenged when it came to doing this event? Tell us a bit about the awards, the jury selection kind of process, what went into it, and how much hard work went into it.
I think that's a quite interesting question. In fact, the idea of MESA, Middle East Security Awards and Conference, came across because as a CISO, I always felt a need to have an event which is exclusively for CISOs from the Middle East. I have been discussing this idea with a lot of different players, but it seemed that a lot of players were not interested because they didn't find much commercial interest into this. So that's when we decided that if nobody else is doing it, we do it for ourselves. So we started working with a lot of CISOs from around the Middle East to see what would their response be for this, and they were quite excited and positive to see that something like this was possible. So that is one of the initial indicators that pushed us to get into and announce MESA. And finally, the fraternity needed some advisory committee as well as some jury to be able to make the awards successful. So we approached some of the very important people in the industry who do similar awards, but not for cybersecurity, but in general for excellence awards. So we picked some very popular juries from Dubai as well as across Middle East to support us and make this more important and more recognized. So we brought in CIOs, we brought in exclusive juries, we brought in CEOs to sort of do the judging activities. And it was quite challenging because first of all, security being what it is, we were quite skeptical in seeing whether the CISOs would be proactive in participating or not. But what excited us was within the announcement, within 2 days of the announcement, we had almost 30 plus CISO nominations. And that is when we thought, no, this is something that could work well for us.
So, of course, the next question is, in 2 days of MESA, what are some of the key themes that have been discussed here? And, going forward, what do you envisage from MESA? This is the first edition of MESA, so how are you going to do the second one differently?
I think one of the key things in MESA is, like I said, it's an exclusive event for the CISOs, from the CISOs, and we want to keep it that way. I mean, we don't want to make it a very general security event because Middle East Security Awards wanted to have this basic difference of giving the CISOs an exclusive event where they could come together, they could celebrate as well as learn from each other. So that would be a sort of theme that would continue for the future. What will be different is we would be more proactive in identifying what are the challenges for a given year, and we would make that as the theme. So this year's theme was more to talk about the resilience that is required in cybersecurity, because the market now very clearly understands that no matter what kind of preventive or detective controls you put in place, you're bound to get hacked either today or tomorrow. But what's more important is keeping yourself resilient, putting in place the controls that would allow you to respond and recover as soon as possible.
So I think a broader question here would be, as a CISO and a thought leader in this region, how do you see the security landscape shaping up? What are some of the key challenges for a security practitioner in the GCC region?
I think one of the best things that's happening in the Middle East is the support that we are getting from the governments, regulators, because they are being very proactive in terms of engaging with the industry, putting in regulations. You have a lot of bodies at the state level as well as federal level now, which are promoting the need to have cybersecurity, the need to have the critical infrastructure security. So that is something that's making our life much easier, because the CISOs now know that this is something which is a priority on the table of the government as well as the business leaders in the region. So that's one of the things that's helping us. What's challenging, like all other regions, is getting the right people to be able to manage security, because there's a lot of skill set shortage in Middle East, just like the other parts of the world. So I think one of the things that we did in MESA is get the people from the government, the academic, as well as the industry together, to put in a plan that would work forward after MESA. So MESA doesn't end only as a conference. We will be having a plan to execute certain action points from MESA in terms of addressing the risks that we see.
So I think another interesting aspect of MESA was that you gave recognition to a lot of women security leaders in the Middle East region, which is in itself a very unique kind of proposition. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I think there's a perception, especially in the rest of the world, about the way women are empowered in Middle East. You'll be surprised to see that we had almost 10 women CISOs who were awarded here, and there are a lot of women professionals who are getting into IT, who are getting into security, and the kind of programs that the government has for women as well as the youth is amazing. I mean, one of the things that we will be probably doing different next year is incorporate a lot of activities in MESA, which could be like a sort of a competency development or a sort of skill development for the youth who are just stepping out of the colleges and who want to get into the cybersecurity industry.
So I think on a final note, do you have any message for the security community in the Middle East?
I think the only message that I have for the security community is don't just be under info walls, because as a security professional you'll have to be more interactive with your business, you have to be more interactive with your employees, because you don't want them to find a wall between you and them. I mean, get rid of the walls. Get in and be part of the business, be part of the people, because only then you can be successful, and only then I was successful as a CISO in my past career. I think that's the only message that I would like to give back to the CISOs.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for speaking with us. So there you have it. That was the founder of CISO Council, Mr. Ahmed Baig. For ISMG in Asia, this is Varun Haran. Thank you.